Hey everybody, this is Joe Joseph, and this is the DailySheeple.com's Daily News Brief, Part 6 of the series, A Brief History of the New World Order. And today we start off with the year 1950, my friends. February 7th, to be exact. As international financier and Council on Foreign Relations member, James Warburg, look up that family and do a little research on the Warburgs, and that would be a very, very interesting rabbit hole to go down. But James Warburg was testifying before the Senate Foreign Relations Subcommittee when he said this, quote, and again, congressional record, "We shall have world government, whether or not you like it, by conquest or consent." You know, very, very interesting there to hear that coming from a prominent banker like James Warburg. And I say prominent not because of the fact that he's so high and mighty, but the Warburg family for generations were among some of the top controlling banking families in the world. And it just, for them to come out and be so ballsy as to tell the Senate Foreign Relations Subcommittee that we shall have world government whether or not you like it by conquest or consent just goes to show you how above the law or how outside of our reality they think they are, you know? Oh, it's unbelievable. 1952, the World Association of Parliamentarians for World Government. Wow, what a club I'd like to... Hey, man, what club are you in? Well, I'm in the Rotary Club. What about you? Well, I bowl on Wednesday nights. What do you do? Well, I'm part of the World Association of Parliamentarians for World Government. You know, not one of your fly-by-night Thursday night groups where you get together and play cards. No. The World Association of Parliamentarians for World Government draws up a map designed to illustrate how foreign troops would occupy and police the 6 regions into which the United States and Canada will be divided as part of their world government plan. Again, 1952, folks. 1952. 6 regions. You know, if you take a look at how FEMA ended up being laid out, it's interesting how I think it's divided up into, I can't remember how many regions, but certainly like 6 or even mega regions. If you go and look at America2050.org and look at their plan for basically getting people into mega regions and rewilding a lot of America. Almost like Soylent Green. Soylent Green is people. 1954. Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands establishes the Bilderbergers. Yes, you want to know where it came from? He's your guy. That's international politicians and bankers who meet secretly on an annual basis. The meetings are held under the Chatham House rule, which states that participants are free to use the information received, but neither the identity nor the affiliation of the speakers, nor of any other participant, may be revealed. Well, that kind of took a hit when independent media started infiltrating and then reporting on the Bilderberg meetings, and now, I mean, it's a annual tinfoil hat extravaganza where people come together and, talk about relevant issues, extremely relevant issues. I mean, here you have business and government getting together to basically say what direction they want to go in. It is giving special interests, the most exclusive access to some of the highest ranking members of governments all over the world. It's illegal. In the United States, it is. Under the Logan Act, they're not supposed to do that, but they do it anyway. So yeah, Bilderberg, 1954, Prince Bernhard. Let's go to 1961. Now, this is very interesting, too. Another thing that people don't realize was published, but very powerful indeed when you want to talk about educating people to exactly why do you trust the government? Why do we blindly trust this entity full of corrupt individuals? And I'm not calling everybody that's a civil servant corrupt, not at all. But what I'm saying is, those typically above the GS pay scale, they didn't get there by being Mr. Nice Guy. It says U.S. State Department issues document 7277, entitled Freedom from War, the U.S. Program for General and Complete Disarmament in a Peaceful World. It details a 3-stage plan to disarm all nations and arm the UN with the final stage, in which no state would have the military power to challenge the progressively strengthened UN peace force. Now, of course, you remember earlier on in the presentation, we talked about the fact that they wanted a world policing force, a world, for lack of a better term, a world army. Every country of the world would basically turn their militaries over to the UN. And then at that point, then what do you do? What do you do when you have one entity with that much power? It's just unbelievable. It's unthinkable to me. Now, here's something very interesting too. This is 1966. Now, if you haven't read this book, I would recommend you do it, but it's going to take time because it's a huge book. But it's hugely informative as well. It gives you an idea, an inside look into some of the thinking of Carroll Quigley, who happened to be Bill Clinton's mentor at Georgetown. So he wrote the book, and in the book, this is what he said, quote, "There does exist, and has existed for a generation, an international network which operates, to some extent, in the way the radical right believes the communists act. In fact, this network, which we may identify as the roundtable groups, has no aversion to cooperating with the communists or any other group, and frequently does so. I know of the operations of this network because I have studied it for 20 years and was permitted for 2 years in the early 1960s to examine its papers and records. I have no aversion to it or to most of its aims and have for much of my life been close to it and to many of its instruments. I have objected, both in the past and recently, to a few of its policies, but in general my chief difference of opinion is that it wishes to remain unknown, and I believe its role in history is significant enough to be known." And basically what he's saying is, look, these roundtable groups have had such an impact on humanity, and they wield such power. Why not make it known? This is a guy that's probably speaking to appease the ego, based on how he feels. Yeah, they should come out and take credit for their good work. Doesn't work like that. And the powers that shouldn't be know it. They don't care about ego at this point. Now, they care about legacy. They care about bloodlines and making sure that the plan continues. But as far as remaining secret, they have no problem with that. Not looking for attention. Now, this is probably one of the most troubling quotes that I have read in a very long time. And when I first read this, I was floored. And Chester Pierce, he's still around today. But this just goes to show you why the current education system as it stands in America is a failure. And why it's so important that my generation and the next generation do its damnedest to break this social tradition. That's not to say that people can't send their kids to public school. Go ahead, knock yourself out. But I'm saying with the way that technology is advanced, the blueprint for your traditional public school is sorely outdated. Not to mention the fact it was hijacked 70, 80 years ago to just start a systematic dumbing down of America. Ask yourself this and be honest with yourself. All those that attended primary school or graduated and got your high school diploma, ask yourself this. If you were to assign a percentage of what you went through in public school to how much of it you use in everyday life, what percentage would that be? Mine, I would say 10%, and I'm really fluffing it. Because outside of reading, writing, and arithmetic, maybe a little bit of science here and there, that's it. The rest of it, do you use it on a daily basis? No. What the public education system is designed to do, its literal intent, they'll sell it as this. And I mean, we can use car salesmen, anything. But they'll sell it as it is an individual right for every child in America to receive an education. Appeal to emotion, my friends. It is one of the oldest tricks in the book. And whenever it comes to debating, that's the first thing that they'll do. Appeal to emotion. You know, instantly you think of your experience in high school or public school and the friends that you made and the things that you did and the shop class that you went to that you liked so much, or, you know, perhaps that you were heavy into music and you remember all that kind of stuff. And it's great. Problem is, it conditions generations of children to become grown adults when they get older that do not possess the tools necessary to become functioning, productive members of society, critical thinking members of society, people in society that question authority instead of just kneel down, kneel before Zod. Chester Pierce was the professor of education at the time in psychiatry in the Faculty of Medicine at Harvard University. I think he's like a professor emeritus now. I mean, this guy is held in high regard over at Harvard. But he addressed the Association for Childhood Education International as a keynote speaker in April 1972. And this is what he said, quote, "Every child in America entering school at the age of 5 is insane because he comes to school with certain allegiances towards our founding fathers, towards his parents, towards a belief in a supernatural being. It's up to you, teachers, to make all these sick children well by creating the international child of the future." Is that what we're looking for in America? You know? Is that what we want? You know, all I can say is you have to take everything at face value. You cannot allow appeal to emotion to seep in. You can't allow that nostalgic feeling of, oh, I went to school and it was this. No. You have to judge everything based on the merits, based on, again, this is a what have you done for me lately type of thing. So let's look at the numbers, you know? And if you look at the numbers, we have been in a steady decline since 1953, since the U.S. government took over public education. Matter of fact, in 1953, we were first in the world in math, science, and reading. Today, in science, we're 40th in the world. In math, we're 24th in the world. And in reading, 25th. In literacy, pardon me. So, has public education worked? By the numbers, it has not. By the numbers, it's been effective in doing exactly what it was designed to do, exactly what the Reese Commission discovered back in the 1950s. And you can go to scribed.com and you can download the findings and the congressional record from the Reese Committee and its investigation into the endowments and how the endowments were putting people in place in academia that were responsible for reforming and creating the curriculum for the public school system with the explicit intent in promoting a communist agenda, a communist curriculum, a communist societal blueprint. And it's here today. Everybody says, oh, America, the freedom and democracy, baby. No. It's America, where the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto are alive and well. That's the America that we live in. In July 1973, international banker and staunch member of the Subversive Council on Foreign Relations, David Rockefeller, finds a new organization called the Trilateral Commission, of which the official aim is to harmonize the political, economic, social, and cultural relations between the three major economic regions in the world, hence the name trilateral. Now, let me stop there because one thing that we've seen, and it looks as though it's falling to pieces, but I don't think it's falling to pieces. If anything, I think that it's a step that will eventually culminate in them trying to bring about this one world government. But you have the European Union. We've seen the North American Union. We've heard of the Asian Union, the African Union. So we've gone from, these 206 nation states, if you will. But then you start using these terms. African Union, European Union. Hey, let's come together. Pretty soon, it goes from that. Maybe it'll be hemispherical. East versus West. North versus South. Eventually culminating in perhaps something along the lines of a one world order. I don't know. But it certainly looks like things are being pushed in that direction. And that was the intent and purpose of the trilaterals, was to kind of smooth that out. So he invited future President Jimmy Carter to become one of the founding members, and Zbigniew Brzezinski, the organization's first director. 1979. Now, this is a very, very, and we're going to close this out with this because, wow, FEMA created. Now, FEMA is an extremely powerful organization. In 1979, FEMA, which stands for the Federal Emergency Management Agency, is given huge powers. It has the power in case of national emergencies. National emergencies, right? National emergency can be anything. The president can declare, like a Girl Scout revolt as a national emergency. It can be anything. But FEMA has the powers to suspend laws, move entire populations, arrest and detain citizens without a warrant, and hold them without trial. It can seize property, food supplies, transportation systems, and even suspend the Constitution. So a state of national emergency could be a terrorist attack, a national disaster. It could be a stock market crash. So let's talk about some of the executive orders that are in place today that have not been rescinded, associated with FEMA, that would suspend the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Here they are. Executive Order 10995, the right to seize all communication media in the United States. 997, right to seize all electric power, fuel, and minerals, both public and private. Executive Order 10999, right to seize all means of transportation, including personal vehicles of any kind, and total control of highways, seaports, and waterways. Executive Order 11,000, right to seize any and all American people and divide up families in order to create workforces to be transferred to any place the government sees fit. Executive Order 11001, the right to seize all health, education, and welfare facilities, both public and private. Executive Order 11002, the right to force registration of all men, women, and children in the United States. Executive Order 11003, the right to seize all airspace, airports, and aircraft. 11004, the right to seize all housing and finance authorities in order to establish relocation designated areas and to force abandonment of areas classified as unsafe. Hence the term FEMA camp. 11005, the right to seize all railroads, inland waterways, and storage facilities, both public and private. And finally, last but certainly not least, and not the only one, there are others out here, but this is just a capture of some of them. 11921 authorizes plans to establish government control of wages and salaries, credit, and the flow of money in U.S. financial institutions. Folks, this, my friends, is freedom and democracy. And this is what we allow to occur and happen on a daily basis. And this is simply using voices throughout history, executive orders, and laws that have already been put in place and just putting the pieces of the puzzle together and let it tell a story. And what story is this telling you so far? That's the question that I have for you as we end this daily news brief brought to you by thedailysheeple.com. Subscribe to our newsletter today over at the Daily Sheeple and check out our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Take care.